Hello, my name is Eric Normand, and I teach at purelyfunctional.tv. I teach Clojure, and this is one of the students there, and his project for learning Clojure. He's created a blog. It's quite nice code that I've been looking at, and I'm reviewing the code for, stylistic, directions to move in, that kind of thing. So let's get started with this. Okay, so the first thing that I noticed was it uses duct, and that's great, but I don't know duct, so I can't really comment on whether it's done correctly or in a good style or anything. I've just never used duct, so I'm not going to comment. It also uses this ataraxy that I don't know, but I'm assuming that this is doing the routing and lets you set up REST API stuff. But like I said, I don't know. Is a very clean code base. It looks really nice. So anything I say is going to be simply on top of that. It's going to be like gravy. Things to think about as you're adding more features, because it works right now, and that's what's really important. But there's some things that I could talk about in terms of style. All right, so I'm just going to go through and start nitpicking. And I assume that you can come up with new features to add, so I'm just going to nitpick the code style. All right, so the thing that was both hard to read and confusing about why you were doing it was how you are building up a map here, and then using that map to build up a different map, which gets posted to create post. So this post data is coming directly from the API, I suppose. So where's this create post, right? That's what I was looking at, create post. So you're taking this post and calling it create post. It's namespacing everything, passing it to this create post. User is just, this is like a shim that you've put in while you're developing, that the user is getting passed in like that. I'm assuming that's going to be the logged in user that you're going to get from a session or something. So you probably already know that, but that's something you could add to this as an extension to keep going on this. Right, so then you're adding more namespace keys to this post data and passing it to this readable to DB post. I don't know what the readable means, but this readable to DB post has different keys. Some of these things are getting put into that. Some of them are getting ignored, like the ID. But see, you're changing the names here, which makes sense. Sometimes you have to do that. And then it's getting passed to this DB create post, which is in here, create post. Okay, and then that's finally getting inserted. So what I'm assuming is happening is these are the column names in your database, and so you need a way to translate from it. My first impression, and this is just the first impression because I don't know where you're going with this architecture, but the first impression is that there are quite a few steps between this and this insert. Steps are good, except when are the steps adding value at every step? So for instance, does it add value to namespace all the keys? It's arguable because you never use them for anything. You never use them namespaced. That could be a requirement that you have somewhere, but the first thing you do after you namespace the keys is immediately translate it into something that doesn't have namespace keys. So I'm not sure what to think about. And it's kind of a code smell, and it makes me think that maybe your module boundaries are drawn incorrectly, that this readable to DB post really should belong to the database. That the interface, and this goes into something else I noticed, which is kind of the same problem. You are defining these protocols for like a user store and a post store, and they're defined in terms of the database. So they're actually leaking their internal structure because they don't translate this at all. They just pass it directly to the database. So the column names in the database are part of the interface to this create post function. When I think what you're trying to get at, which is why you're namespacing the keys here, what you're trying to get at is that the interface to this post store is namespaced keys on certain namespaced keys that it understands, and the store's job is to translate them into the map that you need to pass to insert. Okay, and then on the way out, the get and the list are going to take whatever the database gives it and convert it into that namespaced version. But it does make me think, why are you namespacing the keys on the way in from create post? So it's not part of your external API to use namespace keys. Why are you using them here? I guess it's not a bad thing to use namespace keys. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that it's not clear that you're getting any value out of them at all. And I wonder if that's not indicating that the boundaries are wrong. That maybe create post should already accept only namespace keys, right? Because that's your clients. You're telling your clients you need to namespace your keys, right? And so then you could have a boundary here. This is where it would be appropriate to do a bunch of checks, and one of the checks you could make is that all the keys are namespaced, right? Or that at least it has all the keys that you expect, all the namespace keys you expect, and it ignores the rest. That's sort of the Clojure standard. Is just say, I need 3 keys. I need a body, a title, and something else. And those are the 3 things I'm looking for. And it could be post slash body, post slash title. What are the things you're looking at? You have the title, the text, right? And this other thing where you have this map that you've built up because you're associating onto it. But then you also have another argument, the user ID. I guess that would be the owner of the post or the author of the post. But that's a minor thing. It's just kind of odd that you would not put that into the post key or into the keys there. Right, so that's what I would do, is I would consider this create post to take the format of the post's data that it knows, and meaning this namespace map that has the hyphens, and it takes it, and its job is to translate it into whatever the SQL database needs. And then if you wanted to replace that with a different database, the translation would happen there in a different way. You see, and so you've isolated that post database, post store into its own unit that has a fixed interface that you can evolve the implementation separately. This is definitely leaking right here. Right, and then you have this other one that converts back to readable. Yeah, oh look, you already said that. Okay, never mind. You know what's right there. Can we do better than just use disoc to make sure that we don't override some data in update post function? Looking at update post. Yeah, we can do better than disoc. I see what you're saying. You're asking why this is not the safest way. What you want to do is say, I only care about these 5 keys, or however many it is, right? I care about these 3 keys. I'm going to just select that. So there's a function called select keys. It's exactly what you want. It's made just for this. Select keys. And see what you do is you give it takes a map and then a collection of the keys, and it returns a map with only those key values that are in that list. And so it's nice because if something is missing, it'll just ignore it. But you notice it gets rid of the B because the B is never in that collection. Right? And so that is what you're looking to do, is you want to say, these are the 5 keys I'm after, so get rid of everything else. And then you can pass that to your update post. I see what you're doing. You're saying, oh, a lot of times there's a user ID, let me get rid of it. Oh, a lot of times there's a created date, let me get rid of that. You want to do the opposite, which is instead of blacklisting keys, because what if there's other keys, right? You want a whitelist, and you want to say, these are the 5 I care about, and everything else I'm going to get rid of. I do recommend moving this into the DB namespace. In fact, I would even say move this def protocol into posts. Okay, and it's going to have to require the DB namespace so that gets lower. Someone has to require this. But this is defining the interface, and this is defining the implementation. Right, so this should be exposed publicly because you might want to have 2 different implementations of it. And then this is one particular implementation. And so this def protocol is going to serve more the role that this update post does. You don't need it twice. You just move this into here. You get rid of this update post, and you make the implementation here, update post, do that transformation of the maps. The select keys, the readable DB post, that kind of thing. Okay, so I think that's a good direction to move into. move the interface into here and the implementation stuff into here. And that'll be a very clean separation. And then of course the users DB could move into the users namespace too. I don't know if it's so important that these are separate, the users DB implementation and the post DB implementation. Okay, yeah, right. So another thing is kind of a nitpick, but you're calling now twice. So it's possible that they're going to be different. That there'll be a different milliseconds. I don't know if that's so important, but you know, it's definitely like tingling my code smell senses that should be letted up here at the top, right? This should be let now to now, call to now, and then use it the same in both. List posts, defen. Yeah, all this should be in the DB namespace as part of the implementation. DB post readable. Yeah. Split text on new lines. Get rid of blanks, and then just get the first. Okay, so you have filter complement. You know there's a function called remove, which does that. It's like the opposite of filter. So that just to let you know that's a thing. So you're splitting on new lines, filtering out any blanks, and then just showing the first line. Okay, that's cool. There's also a Clojure.string/split. Clojure string split, and it's not a big deal to use the built-in Java text split, the string method split, but this one is defined in both Clojure and ClojureScript, so it's more portable. Oh, again, it's just something to know. It's not a big deal here. Right. So then the when with this, you could be using, I think, when. Is that a thing? Some. It's just a thread that stops when things become nil. It might clean that up a tiny bit, just to have some thread text split. Oh, I see, but then you got that problem. Yeah, you got the problem of converting between the double thread, the thread last and the thread first, because this wants it here. Well, that's always difficult. Anyway, this is fine. I wouldn't have any problem with that. So yeah, that code smell really did get me thinking about this, about the number of steps you're taking for the amount you accomplish, I guess I want to say. This one, like this function, is almost only, I mean, it adds the user from here, but then all it does is namespaces the post and then delegates to this function. And then that one, all it does is set up the format that the next function is looking for. And then that one just delegates to insert. Yeah, definitely a boundary issue. Like when I look at these implementations, what I'm going to want to see is like a strong boundary. I don't want to have to know the particular column names. If I'm a client of this protocol, I'm thinking about posts, and in your thing, posts have namespace keys and they have hyphens, and you're telling me I can work with that post in this namespace map, but then once I want to store it, I gotta remember to change all the keys and all these details of like what keys to filter out. And I know you're putting that in this function for me, right? You're trying to codify it into a function, but then it's not public, right? And it's not in the right place, I guess is what I'm saying. So I think these readable to DB post and the DB post to readable definitely in the DB. And I'm repeating myself now. Okay, I'm going to go look at another thing. Let's look at user. Oh, there's no handler for user yet. Main page. Okay, you're using Selmer. Okay. So you're listing the posts. Okay, that's cool. Let me see if we can go up to features, users. Yeah, I'm seeing the same thing here where you need to create a stronger boundary. I mean, maybe that's what you're thinking with the features, that the feature is that boundary. Yeah, I'm undecided. So now, no, I just think that this isn't doing enough. That it doesn't require two boundaries, right? You got a boundary here, this protocol, plus you're doing it here. Like, so the reason I think that this namespace and this extend protocol, the reason this is the right place for it is because imagine you change the database. Imagine you started using Datomic instead of a SQL database. And so you want to change these inserts, but then you'd also have to go over, or in the user, you change these inserts. Now you have to go into here and change. When this is a feature, it's not about the database. So I do think that this is the wrong boundary. That this translation here, the thing that you pulled out into its own function, you're pulling apart this map here, and then you're reconstructing the map that the next function expects. Just think that it's the wrong boundary. I like the fact that you have pulled it out in the posts into its own function. That's great. I just think it needs to belong in here. And in a way where if you change the database, no other code would have to ever know. And then, of course, the protocol going in here, it also it would be kind of weird because it wouldn't have anything else in it, right? It'd be just the create posts and the update posts that you defined here, right? So maybe you'd have more functions that combine them, or I don't know. I don't know what it would look like, but there, that's my recommendations. So but like I said, it's good. You just want a strong foundation to add new features to. What are some features to add? I see when I'm here. This is what it looks like when you look at it. When you actually run it, I see that you're using Markdown, but it's not rendered. So you could use a Markdown library, add that into the mix. That's not that complicated, but you could have users, maybe a user registration system, a login form. Thank you for mentioning the name several times. That's really awesome. Yeah, there's plenty of places to take a blog. RSS feed if you want to start dealing with XML and stuff. Let me see. If I do this, recent posts, cool. Just trying. I don't think I saw anything about XML in there. So yeah, that's another feature you could add. People want RSS feeds. Let's see, edit. Oh, that's very nice. Very nice. If you want to do front end stuff, you can always add a live preview of your Markdown. That's fun because there's several JavaScript Markdown implementations, and you could have it, preview down here as you type. As you like get rid of this, add more stuff. You could add it. You could preview it down there. Could add tags. Anyway, it's really cool. Thanks so much, and please check out the site. Please check out purelyfunctional.tv if you're interested in learning Clojure.